Hey everybody, it's Spear here, and we are back with another deck profile today, talking about Blue Yellow Mill Janemba, specifically one that has been upgraded by the anniversary box, and a deck that, while I was playing it for the meme factor for a couple of weeks now, actually turns out I've really been liking it as a viable competitor of the meta. Of course, guys, before we get started, if you want to pick up any of the cards I talk about in today's video, I have to point you guys over to 3-Man Inc., the best place in Canada to get your DBS sealed and single product guaranteed. And of course, you want to watch me pilot this deck. I've piloted a bunch of times at this point. I'm probably going to upload some game plan to the channel, but you want to watch me live and be part of the fun. Link to my Twitch is down in the description. I stream almost every day of the week now. But with that said, we'll just go ahead and jump right into the deck profile. And of course, if you guys just want the deck, as usual, here it is, guys. Links will be in the description. You can just get it. But generally, we're a blue-yellow deck that wants to use the best that blue-yellow has to have to give us as many turns as possible to be able to mill out our opponent while giving us a little bit of burst option, as well as just using blue good stuff to be able to get us there. Of course, we kick off with the leader. When you swing, you draw a card and you mill 2 from your opponent. On the awakened side, it's basically the same thing, except you have an once per game negate, where you get to pitch a blue card, and if you do so, you get to negate the attack. Very useful. A lot of people actually forget about Janemba's inherent negate. It actually helps a lot when people think they can just beat you with Fruit Shrouded as well, because Fruit Shrouded doesn't prevent leader skills. So I'm able to negate the attack of my leader and probably, hopefully survive if I plan around it. It's not the end of the world at the end of the day. Then we go on to the blue-yellow package. Why would we want to play blue-yellow? The number one reason we want to play blue-yellow is because of Zamasu, the Eliminator. He's such a powerful counterplay, prevents the play of a 4-cost card, and that includes Unisons, which means against a lot of opponents, they're going to tap out turn 3, turn 4 to go out and play their Unison, expecting to be able to accrue advantage from there, and we can just prevent that play altogether. On top of being able to prevent play, and effectively kill the tempo of your opponent, you're able to rest down the card and draw a card. So it replaces itself. If the card has deflect, you're still able to play Zamasu and put it in a rest mode, which is something we have to do against a lot of decks. There are some decks that just don't play 4-cost cards. So Xeno Gogeta is an example where we'll play Zamasu when they play their 1-drop, because it just prevents the card from being able to attack into you, prevents you from having a card removed, which is very, very helpful and really allows you to be able to go the extra distance in terms of seeing your later turns. Absolutely phenomenal card. And then it just has an indestructible, which is kind of cute, because if your opponent uses an edict effect, which forces you to pick one of your cards to be destroyed, which we do see in a number of green decks that are being played right now, you can just pick Zamasu, and then that's that. He's got indestructible, he's not leaving the board anytime soon, and he's a 10k combo whenever you need it. Typically, there's only been one reason, then you just play, yellow good stuff to kind of help with that. But ever since the anniversary box, there is a second reason we want to be in blue-yellow. And that is because of SS Rose, Goku Black, Epochal Schemer. So this comes right out of the anniversary box and was actually not in my sights. Someone in my chat had pointed it out to me that this is a card we want to play in the deck. I'm like, yeah, actually, this is a card we want to play in the deck. So right now, I'm testing it out as a 2-of. I haven't had a bunch of time to be able to mess with it and see how much I like it, but this feels to me like you're paying 4 energy to effectively get another turn. It has energy, exhaust, and deflect. Deflect being super prevalent here, and double strike as a 20k beater, which is phenomenal. That's a great rate. At the end of the turn, you switch one of your multicolor energy to active mode. That's awesome. It means he effectively only costs 3, and if you line it up with your awakened turn, or if you have a Boo Unison on board, you're untapping 2 that turn. So really is a very efficient play to make, especially when you consider that when you play him, you get to play 4 shadow tokens, all of which have blocker for the next turn, and they all have combo power. So on base, even if you don't care about the fact that you get 4 blockers on the turn this card comes out, it is a 20k double striker that can combo an additional 20k right off of the cards that it gets, which is absolutely nuts. It means it's basically a 40k swing if you need it to be, which is an insane amount of value. And basically 4 blockers really means you're basically getting another turn. It's effectively a floodgate negate that has deflect, and you do it preemptively on your opponent's turn. Now your opponent can't answer it, of course. Nothing's perfect, but just the fact of how much value this card can get, and if your opponent doesn't have the answer to it via either an overwhelm that can board wipe or being able to remove a bunch of them via attacks, well, then you're just chilling on a bunch of blockers and then probably a bunch of defensive cards because you're in blue. So right now I'm testing it as a 2-of, but I could see this being a 3-of, a 4-of. I used to play Sun Goku and Hit as just an extra arrival to be able to play into the deck, but this has effectively replaced that as just the better tool to be able to get multiple defensive blocks out of your game plan. The 20k double strike is relevant because it means I can push into a Boo and have to force him to proc and put him back into my deck or something like that. So very awesome card. And these are the biggest reasons that we're in blue yellow. Everything else is to support that and gives us a bunch of different options. The extra yellow means that if we ever want to tech in things like Nimbus and all that, which we're not running in the main deck, but we absolutely could, and it would give us that extra longevity. Then we have the supporting cast of blue yellow cards. We are running a bit of a Bojack package, which makes Pinpoint Onslaught a phenomenal choice in terms of having an untapped land, as well as just a free blue yellow combo and a 20k body when we need it to be, which is actually not too bad. So previously I was running a Beerus in this slot to negate the energy exhaust because I just wanted more free play, and I was like, okay. But then someone pointed out to me that if you're going to be running the Bojack package anyways, and there are other Bojack cards in the deck that you're going to be running, there's no reason not to run this one. It's more flexible and has more uses, which I absolutely agree with. Permanent, if you have a Bojack Brigade card in your energy, reduce the combo cost of this card by 1, which is nice. It makes it a free multicolor combo, and the energy exhaust skill in all areas, which is sick. It means you get to charge it and be on your merry way. When this card is played, you activate the Evolve skill on Bojack. This doesn't matter to us because unfortunately we can't play any of the evolved Bojacks really that matter for this deck, but it does have an activate battle for blue or yellow. If there are 2 or more blue and or yellow cards in your combo area, play this card from your hand, and then you get to choose all your blue and yellow Bojack Brigade card in all battle areas, and they get 5k. Not bad, just a good cross boost. We don't really use this too often, but there are times in the game where you do actually want to apply pressure as Janemba, and this allows you to do that for effectively a very cheap cost of just 1 when you're probably comboing out anyways. Then additionally, we have Bojack Resident Agent of Destruction, which provides us an arrival blocker that also rests one of our opponent cards and mills them one. Instant speed mill is very important in the deck because when your opponent thinks they're safe because it's their turn and they can perfectly plan out their plays when they're at 1 or 2 cards left in the deck, things like Bojack allow you to really be able to put a hitch in that plan and potentially just win out on your opponent's turn, which is amazing. And it actually combos with Pinpoint Onslaught because now it's a Bojack that on turn 1, if you really do want to charge a multicolor on turn 1, just so the rest of your plays, so that Zamasu is live is the biggest thing, then you just go ahead and charge this, and that counts as a Bojack to be able to go off and do the rest that you need to do. But generally, just instant speed mill is super, super powerful. Then finally, the last Bojack piece that we're running is the Evildoer. We are running this package, and I understand that some people think that it is against our game plan to be able to put cards back in our opponent's deck, but we only have this as a 3 of in the deck, so at most it only ever happens 3 times, and you're never really gonna lose by not being able to mill like 1 card. Generally, you're able to set it up that if you weren't able to burst mill the entirety of your opponent's deck, you probably have a Bojack negate that we're going to see a little bit later on to be able to mill 1, or you're going to be able to arrival the Resident Agent of Destruction to be able to mill another. Generally speaking, you're not going to lose by the mill 1 if that's the kind of game you're having, and you just kind of need the interaction. In blue, and especially in Janemba, where we can't include things that cost more than 4, it is very tough to try and include things that can deal with board. So the removal is super handy. The dual attack is very handy in being able to apply pressure and clean up boards as we see fit. So generally, I think it actually is better to run than not to run at the moment, and it combos really well with Pinpoint Onslaught. If we don't have a multicolor right out the bat, we could just go off and charge Bojack the Evildoer on turn 1, and now we have a Bojack Brigade so that Pinpoint Onslaught can not have energy exhaust on turn 2, and then our Zamasu live turn 2, which again, the big point of being in this deck is that we can run Zamasu. So we want to have Zamasu live on turn 2, and we want to threaten our opponent with Zamasu every single turn. And if we're going to run the Evildoer, then I run a pair of Galactic Busters just to be able to defensively have more options if I need it. Then we go on to the mill aspect. Of course, the leader does most of the work, but I found out after playtesting this deck a couple of weeks ago that you really do want the burst mill. Previously, I was only running 2 of the Agent of Destruction, this one, just because the burst 3 was sick. It untaps 1 and it draws you 1. So it's very efficient, and it's the most bursty one of the options we have. But turns out you really want to be able to sometimes just do 7, 8, 9 cards on your opponent to really be able to maximize and potentially kill them on the turn that you can do that. So we're running 2 of this one, 2 of the Reality Bender, which comes out for 1 if your opponent has battle cards and you don't have battle cards, which in this deck is very easy to set up. You do have to be careful if you're trying to line up Reality Bender. You are going to have to watch out for the Zamasus that stay on board because your opponent's not going to have a great way of getting rid of them. So you might have to combo them away or do something with them the turn you're planning on going into Reality Bender. And then we have Demon Sword. You might want to consider Max Power Kamehameha for this deck. It's definitely like a sideboard option if you're going to a best of 3 event. But Demon Sword fills in that slot while also milling our opponent. So there's that benefit there. It's removal. We don't have a ton of removal, so we can take whatever we got. So if our opponent has an annoying body, we can warp it with this card, and then we can mill them additionally on top of that. Our burst mill package is effectively this. We have 6 between all of them, which is fine because you don't want want to see them until turn 5, turn 6. You're not playing these on turn 4. Turn 4, you're playing your Boo Unison. You're putting up your defensive walls. If you don't have Boo Unison, maybe you just end up playing the Goku Black. You want to make sure that your turn 4 is where you stabilize and where the game comes under your control. And if you're doing something like playing these cards, odds are you're probably losing on the control aspect of the game and arguably making things way more difficult for you. Moving on to our defensive pieces, because we do need to make it past turn 4. But the first and best thing we can do is get to turn 4 so that we can get Majin Buu down on board. I play him as 3 of. Out of 3 of, you almost always see him by turn 4. You draw enough cards, and between your opponent, like getting you down to 4, which they almost always do by then, you are pretty guaranteed to see this. If I get it in my opening hand, I just keep it. I don't mulligan it away because it is my guaranteed turn 4 play that 9 times out of 10. There's almost never a time I'm not just dropping Boo. You guys already know what he does. He's amazing. Draws a card, untaps energy. He's a blocker. You remove something on board. He just does everything. He's a double striker that untaps, which means he's great for controlling other unisons, which is like really nice because it means it gives us a bit more control options. Very rarely are we attacking our opponent because we don't want to give him more card advantage, but he's also a threat. If our opponent thinks that he can be liberal with his life just because we're trying to mill them out, well, we can go in there with Boo and probably close out the game. Then we have Bojack Pirate's Pride. I was at a 4 of with this. Now we're at 3 because it did get a little bit clunky in my hand. And it turns out I don't have as much arrival as I used to in the deck anymore. So you don't actually need the yellow combo as much. So effectively here, 3 felt like enough. Again, instant speed mill is super effective. It's just an extra negate. We're trying to be defensive. So hey, it does the job. Then we're a blue deck. So we just run blue good stuff. At the moment, I'm running 3 Vegeta Ready to Rumble as an instant speed way to negate our opponent's attack and effectively tell them your turn's done. Very rarely do they want to swing because this is a blocker. So if they don't have removal after their swing, odds are this is going to force at least for them to pop 2 energy between blocking with this one, and then we have the Boo Unison, which means you're probably popping 3. Effectively, with this deck and the way that it's defensive, your opponent, like on board, needs to pop 3 energy to get an attack through, and that's before you even encounter any additional negates you might have on top of Vegeta. So he's just really good. I have him at 3, but you could argue that you want to sub out Vegetas for Goku Blacks as much as possible because Goku Black is almost a guarantee because he's got deflect, so he's going to hit board, you're going to get your blockers. There's an argument to be made there. That's the one like ratio thing I will say. When we're talking about 4 cost defensive cards, you can either choose Ready to Rumble or Goku Black. Right now I'm mixing both, but the more I'm testing it, there's a good reason I could see myself going into additional Goku Blacks and just subbing out Ready to Rumbles. Otherwise, Child's Army Reinforcements, we run 3, super good card. I'll often pay energy for this. You do want to stay at a high life total as much as possible, but it gives you the option that if they're going to swing with you with a double striker and you're at 5, you can just go down to 4. You want to be awakened by then, usually anyways, and then you get the additional blocker. I don't have to say much about it. Dimension Magic, best negate. Arguably one of the best negates in the game. And then since we've been running that as a 3 of defensively, offensively we don't really use it that much. Very rarely are we in a position where we want to do 2 or 3 things, but on a turn where you want to burst with a bunch of Janembas, you might actually be able to squeeze out 1 more Janemba using a couple Sensu Beans. So it's an option there if you'd want it. Then looking at our techie cards, we are running 2 Great Apes. I know a lot of people have been saying I could use Deborah here instead, and I do agree. If you know you're going up against hand destruction, sure, Tekken Deborah. But the thing is that Deborah's dead if you're not going up against a hand destruction deck or you don't play against someone who ends up like topoing you or something like that, which I don't know why they would topo you if you're playing Janemba. So on that front, I just like that Saiyan Instincts is a card I can use in any matchup, not just hand destruction. And I want to, in best of ones, you really want to be flexible for what you're going to see across the meta and not just tech against your worst matchup, because what happens if you don't see your worst matchup all day? So on that front, I prefer Saiyan Instincts as a pair. You can make an argument for Deborah, and I'm not gonna, harp on you for it. Generally, I just like the flexibility of being able to use Great Apes in any matchup. Then we have Bardock as a 1-of over just to cycle our hand. Sometimes your hand can get clunky. Like let's say you're looking for a mill piece to be able to kill your opponent, or you're really looking for a defensive piece to not die, or maybe you're digging for Majin Buu. There's a number of things you might be looking for. So this, usually we're only really using to effectively cycle out our hand and draw a couple of more cards to be able to fix our next turn. 2 Zamasu super combos. I do have a 2-2 split between this and the GT Vegeta. Just a defensive card. It sets up a free arrival if we needed to, but generally it basically prevents 2 attacks. It says your opponent can only, your opponent gets 1 less attack effectively most of the time. And if they sequence it where they can't swing with the leader or whatever, there's a number of things you can do that really helps. I like the Zamasu super combo a lot for that front. and then the 2 Vegeta Disciplined Warrior. You could make an argument that Sacred Disbelief isn't good enough in the deck and just run 4 Disciplined Warrior just so that you consistently have great combo that cycles your hand. I'm not going to complain with you on that one. Honestly, you could probably be right, and I'd say it's preference on that point. And then finally, to wrap it up, the secret rare choice. I don't know why I'm saying it's a choice. It's not a choice. It's the only one we can run. Heron's Lineage. I wish we could run Hatch in the deck. I really, really do. I wish we could run Oceanus in the deck. But unfortunately, the permanent means that we are stuck with things that cost 4 or less, and Heron's Lineage is the only one we can run. Which, don't get me wrong, Heron's Lineage is perfectly fine in this deck. It's a way to instant speed interact with our opponent, and it's won me games because the opponent forgot that I was running it or just didn't think about it or thought I didn't have it, and we were able to take the game away from it as well, which is super sick. Can't complain too much. Turns out that, you know, if my opponent has great finishers that cost 7 or less, turns out they're my great finishers as well. So I can't complain too much on that front. Lineage will do what it does. It steals your opponent's cards at instant speed. I can't really complain. But generally speaking, guys, that's the deck. Like I said, there's a bunch of different options you can take with the deck. The core is definitely running Zamasu, and now with the anniversary box, running the SS Rose Goku Black. But there's plenty of ways you can go about it. You can run Deborah's, you can change the ratios on the defensive cards, you can consider the Gohan 3-drop. I didn't want to because it felt like it wasn't really the card I want to run. I'd rather just have Zamasu up generally. So like, you could consider the Gohan as well as an extra floodgate negate. You can consider Nimbus, lots of things. And this is a very sideboardable deck. You can be very hated on because you're a blue deck and your Janemba and hand destruction hurts a lot. But generally, there's a lot of flex for you to be able to flavor the deck in the way that works best for you. Mono blue works as well if you don't want to go the blue yellow route. But with that said, guys, that was my Mill Janemba deck, which very close to the one that I piloted to an X2 finish in this past weekend's regional. And while I thought Mill Janemba was going to be something that I pulled out, I played for like a week and then stopped, I think this is something I might be playing a little bit more often because I love Mill. I find it a ton of fun, as much as I know a lot of people really don't. And this version of the deck feels really, really, really good. With that said, guys, let me know down below how you guys would tech out your Mill Janemba decks. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike, give it a thumbs down. Guys, don't forget to check out the giveaway video. Links to that will be down in the description below, or the little eye that will pop up there. You just have to be subscribed. You have to comment. The moment I put out my Q&A video that goes along with the 3K sub special, that's it. The giveaway will be done. So definitely go check that out. Be a part of it if you're not already. And if you're not subbed and you want to participate in that, oh, button's right there. And with that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one.